Welcome to the C-Suite, where we're helping women to create choices in their careers. I'm Danielle Deshaw. Have you ever heard the quote that you don't manage time, you can only manage your activities? Our first guest is going to be sharing with us some tips on how you can work more wisely at your workplace. Martina Rowley is a virtual business manager and productivity consultant. She's going to be sharing with us some tips on how you can increase and boost your productivity at work. Welcome, Martina, to the show.
Hi, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you because especially now that we're working from home, there are so many distractions that can happen that can actually decrease our productivity.
Yes, absolutely. Especially now that we're working from home, or many people are working from home now. And even though we're quite far into the pandemic and the lockdowns now, it's still a situation that many people aren't used to and not very comfortable with. It's different from a outside of home workspace.
So I know you've got 5 tips that you want to get through. So can you start sharing those tips with us?
Absolutely. So productivity tip number 1 is focus. So really what we want to do is stay really focused on the most important tasks that we should be working on. And a good way to do that is to prioritize your day and your week. And one good way to do that is to use what's called the Eisenhower matrix, or it's more typically known as the urgent and important matrix. So it's a quadrant. You've got these 4 squares. It's the urgent and important, the not so urgent and important, and then things that really aren't that important that someone else should be doing, and stuff that you should just forget altogether. So it can help to sit down with that, prioritize your maybe top 3 tasks that you should be working on that day. These are tasks that only you can and should be doing. Then there's tasks that are less urgent that you can do later in the week. Those are the ones ideally you would schedule into your calendar so that you don't forget to do them at the certain dates. And then the third most important ones are those that you can delegate or outsource to somebody else. Those are tasks that someone else can and should do faster, better. You don't need to spend your time on those. And then the fourth are things like online research, social media, looking stuff up where you just end up wasting time. Those you should try and get rid of and keep those outside of your work time altogether.
Wonderful. Okay, so can you go into a little bit more detail? That was step 1.
That was the first one, yes.
That was the first one. Okay, so what is step 2?
Productivity tip number 2 is time management, and that goes hand in hand, obviously, with prioritizing. And there are a number of techniques around that. And what we need to realize is that our brains really cannot truly multitask. When we multitask, we're basically doing several things, but not doing any of them properly and not doing them well. So a couple of techniques around that. The first one is time chunking. So you have chunks of either 60 minutes or 90 minutes in which you focus on 1 or 2 tasks, and you do that and don't let yourself get distracted. And the reason it's that length is that our brains literally physiologically can't handle more than about 90 minutes before they just need a boost of energy and maybe some nutrition and just a little break to be really productive again. Then the second technique is called the Pomodoro technique, and it's using 25 minutes of really key focus on your task, 1 task at a time, and then you take a 5-minute break. So you do these Pomodoro chunks of time, 3 or 4 after one another, and then you have a longer break, maybe lunchtime, to have, to refresh your brain. And then the last one is power work, is using the time of day that you are the most productive. So for some people that would be early in the morning, for others later in the morning. So you use that time to do your most important work in where you're the most productive.
Wonderful. And I love the fact that you added in and pointed out the time and taking breaks, because especially when we're staring at the screen and doing Zooms all day long, you want to give your eyes a little bit of a break.
Absolutely. It's not just your eyes, but you really need to switch your brain off as well, especially if you're working on different projects or with different clients. You need to allow your break, basically a reset between focusing on 1 task for 1 client or 1 project to switching off from that completely, stop thinking about it and move on to something else. And then with that as well, if I can just jump into the next productivity tip is good communication. Because if you're jumping between tasks, or you have more than one person working on things, so if you have a team of employees or people you're outsourcing to, you need to have, especially now if you're working from home and there's more remote work happening, you need to have good communication flow. And email is terrible at doing that when you have multiple people contributing feedback. And after a while, you just completely lose track. So I recommend using team communication or team management, project management apps, such as Microsoft MS Teams. Those are used more in a corporate setting, but then there's other applications. Many of them have free programs like Monday.com, Slack, and very popular in my field. Are things like Asana, Trello, and Basecamp. You can just look them up, look up which ones fits, your schedule and your size of team, but they will keep communication in one place that everyone can access, and it keeps it out of your email.
Wonderful. Okay, so what's your next step? Number 4.
Number 4 is distractions. And of course, when we're working from home, there are so many new distractions we don't have in the office environment. Although when you're in a shared office space, in an open plan office, you have people coming by your desk unannounced, and you have, the water cooler chat and so on. We have, whether we're in an office or at home, firstly, we have tech distractions. There's our cell phone. It buzzes, it rings, there's text messages, there's emails to look at, there's social media. So I recommend turning off anything that beeps, buzzes, or vibrates across your desk. Turn off notifications on your computer that show you, tell you when there's a new email, so you don't suddenly get distracted thinking, oh, maybe I should go and check that new email. Perhaps that's really urgent. And already your brain has stopped focusing on your task. And then in terms of distractions from other humans or pets, include them in knowing when you are available, when you're not available. Train them, if it's pets, train them in terms of when you're going to have your breaks and playtime. And with children, involve them in maybe drawing some signage that says, these times, you're absolutely not to disturb mommy or daddy because they're on a video call. So get them involved in that to minimize your distractions.
I really like the fact that you're helping to include others, especially with kids, in the fact that you're trying to remain productive and focused in your day.
Yes, you need everybody's help. Or if you're in a work environment, make sure perhaps that your colleagues know that from this time to that time, this is your power work, and please don't disturb me in that time. I'll, leave a sticky note at my cubicle, and I'll come talk to you later.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so what is your last tip in all of these?
Last tip, productivity tip number 5 is boundaries. Hugely important when we're working from home, but for everybody, not just boundaries with the people around you, but it's your boundaries in you sticking to what is your work time and what is your personal time. And I know that many people are burning out because of that. They're not used to stopping their work time at 5 or 6 o'clock because they're not walking out of an office. They're at home. They're getting back to work after their dinner, and it feeds into the family time. So set those boundaries between your work time and your private time. It's okay to say no hopefully it's okay to say no to your boss, to your team, to anyone you're communicating it with. Let them know what your work hours are, and be strict and firm with not answering texts and not replying to emails, not even checking emails. When you finish your day of work, you close the computer, throw a blanket over it so you're not tempted. Just leave it alone. You're entitled to your downtime, and make sure you get it. And with the stress of the pandemic right now, it's even more important to make sure that you don't get stressed from work as well. And if you're a team leader, very important, if you're leading a team, if you're the boss, make sure that you also lead by example. Don't send messages late at night that will tempt people to actually go in and respond and feel that real or perceived pressure.
Wonderful. So like role modeling the behaviors that you
Absolutely,
want from
very
your team.
important
Yeah.
in all of this. Yes, exactly.
Wonderful. So thank you, Martina, for sharing these 5 productivity tips, and then tips on top of tips as well to help people become more focused, decrease the overwhelm, and feel less stressed with everything that we have to do today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Danielle.
You're welcome.